The Cleveland Browns are ready to contend right now, and I am going to give you the biggest three factors as to why that is the case. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. 7th season now with Cleveland Browns coverage, the good, the bad, some ugly, of course. I feel your pain, Browns fans. The Locked On Browns podcast brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. And as what I can suggest here is for the everydayers who make Locked On Browns their first listen, you guys are all truly appreciated. Closing in on 6,000 subscribers. It's all the new traffic. Why don't you join the everydayers and make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns podcast here on YouTube. Notifications on, so when the content drops, you're there to absorb it. Audio-wise, Locked On Browns, always available, always free. As we mentioned, the Cleveland Browns, and, for the everydayers, obviously, this, you've been listening, for any new traffic rolling through here. The significant changes that have been done to this team this offseason. And again, we get back to it. A lot of it is not so much just what has been brought in. A lot of it has to do with one man who has been here, and the doubling and tripling down by Andrew Berry to make sure this massive investment by the Browns front office, certainly the massive investment of Jimmy Haslam and his dollars to Deshaun Watson, are hopefully going to reap the dividends and the benefits that Cleveland Browns fans has so desperately been waiting to see. Deshaun Watson, 2020, obviously 2021 out of the league, 2022, certainly a shortened season. But prior to the allegations that led to him not playing his 2020 season, his years in the league before that, we were talking about a quarterback that a lot of folks thought deserved to be mentioned in the same breath as Patrick Mahomes. He had that type of trajectory going on at the time. 2020, the Houston Texans were a terrible football team. And one of the things in watching the 2020 Texans is just seeing how good Deshaun Watson was and how bad the rest of that team was. Now you put him in a situation here in Cleveland. And what you saw from Amari Cooper in year one, playing 11 games with Jacoby Brissett, you saw a wide receiver who has not missed a beat, even though he is on his third team. Successful seasons with the Raiders, successful seasons with the Cowboys, 1 year with the Cleveland Browns. You saw probably, in my opinion, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. Great route runner. Every now and then you get a drop or two that certainly, makes you scratch your head. But Amari Cooper is just a smooth, silky smooth wide receiver. And you saw it last year. And you saw glimpses of what a relationship between Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper could be in 2022. You go back to that second half in the Washington game, Amari Cooper over 100 yards receiving in the second half alone, 2 long touchdowns, and turned out what to be a difference maker in a game that certainly looked like a stinker, a clunker up until that point. But you saw what Deshaun Watson and certainly Amari Cooper can be. The Donovan Peoples-Jones growth probably, slowed down a little bit. And I think a lot of that had to do with the closing out of the 2022 regular season. Certainly when weather became an issue and throwing the ball and completing passes became a little bit more of an issue, a little bit more of a difficult task. But we're talking about a player with, in my opinion, 60 reception, 900 yard potential. This is probably what we can expect from Donovan Peoples-Jones year in, year out. I will never, ever stop harping about Elijah Moore. I think what Elijah Moore can do for this offense, I think it is unlimited. I think it is untapped. This is a player disgruntled coming over after 2 years with the Jets. Situations that went on with the Jets, Zach Wilson not panning out. Then, of course, the drafting of Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore becoming, going from first fiddle to essentially second fiddle. Then Elijah Moore saying, "Wow, this franchise is bringing in Aaron Rodgers. I cannot wait." And then understanding that he was the odd man out because he knew Aaron Rodgers was bringing his own cast of cronies with him. Browns swoop in, get a player with high volume ability. Did not see it in New York. You saw it at Ole Miss with a team that certainly was not a college juggernaut. So you have those three receivers, David Njoku, and I will tell you one more time, go back, take David Njoku's stat line last year, now extrapolated over a 17-game schedule, and you will see a player, again, for the 50th time, he is not Travis Kelce, but he can be in the conversation for who rounds out those second, third, fourth, fifth when you want to rank your top 5 tight ends in the NFL. You bring in a player like Jordan Akins, who obviously has a relationship with Deshaun Watson. And Akins actually had a pretty good year last year in Houston, what was poor circumstances as well. One of the main reasons the Houston Texans did not draft number 1 overall was certainly Jordan Akins. Harrison Bryant, I think there's a player that a lot of people, Browns media-wise, a lot of people, Browns fans-wise, are sleeping on. I think him as a third target, him on the field, where almost every time he will be the 5th option, he will find a lot of opportunity to contribute to this team. Now, we have not gotten to what had been the bread and butter of the Cleveland Browns up until the arrival of Deshaun Watson, and that is certainly Nick Chubb, one of the game's greatest running backs. In my opinion, the NFL's best running back. You want to give him a Derrick Henry's touches, Nick Chubb will crush and absolutely destroy the production we have seen from Derrick Henry. Nick Chubb, a solid player. And this is where it will be interesting this year with Nick Chubb, because I think you're going to start to see Nick Chubb be more involved as a receiver. And there might be opportunities there where Nick Chubb maybe won't carry the ball as much as we've seen in the last couple of years. And part of the reason being for that will be just due to the fact that you can probably expect Jerome Ford to contribute more as a carrier of the ball. You can't expect him to just jump in and be a big receiving threat. So I think that's where what Nick Chubb has, and we've seen Nick Chubb, and he saw the ability last game of the year against Pittsburgh last year, where the relationship with him and Deshaun as a receiver starting to come around, starting to round into shape. This is something the Browns have never really focused on as far as what Nick Chubb can do. But Nick Chubb, he's gotten better every year as a receiver. For the Browns, he was just so good at running the football. That was your opportunity to get Kareem Hunt on the field. That was your opportunity to get Dearness Johnson on the field. Now we get to the offensive line. Ethan Posick, an absolute, just a guy who came out of nowhere last year, was never thought to be the starter. We all know what happened. He ended up being the starter and just took an opportunity, seized it, and just claimed it as his own. The Browns made the right move in bringing back a player like Ethan Posick. Now you have obviously a guy who may be on a Hall of Fame path in Joe Bitonio at left guard. Wyatt Teller. There are times where Wyatt Teller is one of the best right guards in the NFL. Obviously, injuries have been a little bit of it told the tale a little bit, Wyatt Teller, and even when he comes back and he's not 100%, we don't see the best version of Wyatt Teller, but should come out the gate 100% to start the season. Jack Conklin, we've seen all-pro ability. We've seen him named an all-pro here in Cleveland. And I don't think the Browns would have even gotten to extension talks with Jack Conklin if they still do not believe that ability is there. Jedrick Wills, obviously the question mark of this offensive line. The Browns picking up the 5th-year option. For Jedrick Wills, it needs to all come together. And there's certainly the possibility for that. And look, he does not need to be a top 5 left tackle. Maybe not even a top 10 left tackle. He can be a top 15 left tackle. The Browns will be in business. But the reason, and one of the main reasons, the Cleveland Browns will be able to contend in the 2023 season is number 4, Deshaun Watson. There is no more newness. He is familiar with the staff. He is familiar with the system. He is familiar with the city. All of this stuff appears to be behind him as far as the off-field is concerned. So for the Cleveland Browns, the offensive side, Deshaun Watson and his weapons are a key focal point in what can be a very, very successful 2023 season. We're going to flip it up here. And there's way defenses are built in the NFL. And if you think you're going to win and you think you're going to contend, there are certain positional groups that you highlight. And the Cleveland Browns did just that heading into 2023. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in all the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and join today. You guys know I love my New York Mets, and yes, they break my heart, but I still find a way to put together a same-game parlay every day. Look, if you love your favorite team, you're devoted to them, you can find a way to put together a bet. Put down $5, $10. You have a chance at a big reward at the end of the day. It's what you spend on your morning coffee. So don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, here at the Locked On Browns podcast. Obviously, we appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. To the everydayers, you, of course, are the fabric on which this podcast is built. Everybody else, be like the everydayers. Subscribe to the Locked On Browns podcast on YouTube. Your team, Locked On's catchphrase, your team, every day. In the NFL, when you are a contending franchise and you feel that you can be a contending franchise. Now you look at teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, yes, lost the Super Bowl last year. 2 picks in the first round. What did the Philadelphia Eagles do? Drafted another defensive tackle, drafted another defensive end. Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year. What did the Kansas City Chiefs do in the first round of the NFL draft? They went out and drafted yet another pass rusher. If you think you're a contending team, you obviously think that you are going to be a team that is going to be winning more than you're losing. You think that you're going to be a team that is going to be winning in the latter stages of your ball games. So you're going to force your opponent to do what? Throw the ball to try and change the outcome of the game. How do you combat that? You combat that by focusing on secondary play and focusing on defensive line play. The Cleveland Browns, the Jadeveon Clowney experiment in year 2 obviously blew up in their faces. And I don't think anybody at the time was faulting the Cleveland Browns for the move they made. I think everyone felt it was a right move to bring back Jadeveon Clowney, give him more money, even understanding the history of that player. And it did kind of blow up in their face. There's no question about that. So the Browns go out in the beginning of free agency, sign Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, pass rusher from the Houston Texans, had a nice career with the Rams, finally got an opportunity to play as a starter for the Houston Texans, even had a sack against Deshaun Watson's first start back in the NFL. Now, everybody was pretty excited when Ogbonnia Okoronkwo was signed to this team. Everybody thought, oh, wow, this is going to be the guy that's going to start opposite Myles Garrett. Later on, post-draft, Zadarius Smith is available. Browns find a way. Andrew Berry calls his former, obviously, lieutenant in Minnesota, finds a way to make the deal work, and you bring in a even bigger proven starter at the defensive end position than the one that you thought you were going to have in Ogbonnia Okoronkwo. You still have Alex Wright. You spent a draft choice on Isaiah McGuire. You still have Isaiah Thomas, who could possibly be the odd man out here. The Browns are going with a star, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, a guy who was on a Hall of Fame trajectory path in Myles Garrett. Zadarius Smith, one of the hardest workers in the NFL, a guy who's had a ton of success with winning franchises in Baltimore, in Green Bay, in Minnesota. Then you add in Okoronkwo, you add in Alex Wright, you add in Isaiah McGuire. So there you show the commitment to getting after the passer when you feel that the teams are going to be throwing at you a ton late in the third quarter and in the fourth quarter. The Browns defensive tackle, I still believe it's a work in progress. We all still believe it's a work in progress, but you went a long way in rectifying that room with the addition of Dalvin Tomlinson. Dalvin Tomlinson was a good player for the New York Giants, found his way as a complete player on the interior. with the Minnesota Vikings. Again, Browns going to Minnesota, bringing a player in. Dalvin Tomlinson is a player that has shown the ability to stuff the run out as well. Be able to engage and disengage from interior offensive linemen and be a presence in stopping the run which the Browns absolutely, desperately need after what we saw in 2022. The other thing is that Dalvin Tomlinson is not just a guy who's going to run off the field on third down. You can use him in pass rushing situations. This is where it's going to get tricky for the Browns because they truly need him on the field right now unless somebody steps up or somebody else is brought in. So you truly need Dalvin Tomlinson to be a lynch point in stopping the opposing running game. The tricky part is he going to get too taxed doing that, and you're not going to get the added bonus of using a player like Dalvin Tomlinson to aid in rushing the passer. We've heard Jim Schwartz talk about the fact that he wants to be able to rush 5. Obviously, that means he wants to be able to create something from the interior. Yes, there are edges who have enough size that you can kick it in the interior in obvious passing situations. But rushing 5 and getting interior pressure, you signed Dalvin Tomlinson. You gave Dalvin Tomlinson the contract he did because you didn't think you were getting just a one-way player. You were getting a versatile player who can contribute in both pass defense and run defense. So the Browns are going to need other people to step up on the interior and stopping the run. So Dalvin Tomlinson can take some blows there and get the opportunity to get in pass rushing situations and maybe pick up some of the scraps that Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Okoronkwo, even Alex Wright, even McGuire are going to leave the opportunities there for somebody to get some gimme sacks. Also, when you are a contending team, when you are building your defense because you think you are going to be playing with the lead, you need to make sure your secondary is ready to handle the workload. Prime example, week 2, home, New York Jets, 13-point lead late in the game. Should be an easy one to put out, but no. Just no. And one of the biggest issues there was the safety play and communication, and maybe Joe Woods getting too tricky, too cute with what he's trying to do. Well, what we've heard from this point from a lot of Browns players is that's not the case right now. Jim Schwartz, defensive coordinator, we're going to get Jim Schwartz a little bit more here in segment 3, is Jim Schwartz is trying to put these guys in the best opportunity to succeed, the easiest opportunity to succeed, not trying to bog them down with verbiage, not trying to bog them down with, trying to look too intently for things that they may not just be seeing. So with that, you get a true free safety, a top-notch athlete in Juan Thornhill, a player tried and tested 2 Super Bowl rings, played in 3 Super Bowls with the Kansas City Chiefs. There is no moment that is too big for a player like Juan Thornhill. He comes here. You've seen the early footage. He's an excited guy. He's an animated guy. He's like guy who likes to chirp, like to get his teammates motivated. Huge get. Rodney McLeod, here is a Jim Schwartz disciple, has had the ultimate success with Jim Schwartz, won a Super Bowl with Jim Schwartz with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's bounced around the league, but nothing has changed. McLeod has always been a solid safety, can play some nickel opportunities, can play a zone cover 3, cover 2 if you ask him to, which allows Grant Delpit to be in a position where he can play closer to the line of scrimmage, where we've seen the best versions of Grant Delpit. Grant Delpit, year 2 started slow, coming back from the Achilles injury. As year 2 went on, started to get comfortable, find himself again, that All-American that he was at LSU. Year 3, again, for everybody in year 3, the defense started slow. As the year went on, it got better, not great, got better, but not great, of course. And you saw a player like Grant Delpit, again, now starting to play closer to the line of scrimmage, where he excels. Not that he can't do other things, but around the line of scrimmage is kind of where he excels. So keep a player like that in that fold. And now we get to the cornerbacks. Denzel Ward, we have seen tremendous cornerback play from Denzel Ward in his time here with the Cleveland Browns. Obviously why he is on the contract extension that he has. Greg Newsome's always been a solid player. I think things got murky by Greg's own comments about where he would prefer to play, what he would like to play. And look, there isn't a cornerback alive that says, I want to play the slot. If you truly think you are what you are, You want to be on the outside. You crave to be on the outside. You want to face the best in those one-on-one opportunities. And Greg Newsome is no different than any other cornerback that's ever been born. Martin Emerson, a bully, got length, just will fight everybody. I still go back to that rep against Mike Williams against the Los Angeles Chargers that should have changed the outcome of that game. Chargers got a little crazy, went forward on 4th and short. The big time rookie stepped up at a big time situation. PBU turned the ball over. The Browns could not take advantage. The Cleveland Browns have built a defense with the thought process of, we're going to win a lot of games. We're going to be leading a lot of games. So I want pass rushers and I want secondary play. That is yet another reason why I do believe the Cleveland Browns are truly contenders here in the 2023 season. One more segment to go, and we're going to get to the coaching aspect of it, as the Cleveland Browns have certainly done ample work there. Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, here at Locked On Browns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Locked On Browns on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Closing in on 6,000 subscribers. You guys are all too fantastic. Audio-wise, Locked On Browns. Always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. The relationship between the Browns and defensive coordinator Joe Woods, and for Joe Woods to make the entire season last year, in my opinion, it was probably impressive. Did I think it was coming? Did I think it was going to happen? No. Should the Browns maybe have pulled the plug? But I think the Browns realized that once things got out of hand, and they got really good play out of Jacoby Brissett, but the team was still 4-7. And now here you were, maybe what? Obviously, can we get, Deshaun Watson back here? Can he go 5-1? Can he go 6-0? And at the time, the defense was irrevocably broken. So maybe you didn't want to put that opportunity in somebody else's hand to, try to, switch this defense around, make this defense work. Your linebackers, you were down to linebacker 6, 7, and 8 at that point. But Joe Woods, the writing was on the wall and everybody knew it. So the Browns had the opportunity to go big game hunting, and they did just that. Jim Schwartz, it was time in Tennessee. It was head coaching stint with the Detroit Lions. And yes, the team overall wasn't very good, but their defense was extremely tough. A trip to Buffalo, where he did a great job with their defense, and then ending up with the Philadelphia Eagles and getting to hoist a Lombardi trophy with the Philadelphia Eagles. There is a man with a track record. There is a man who is a proven commodity in what he does. Now, Jim Schwartz has been a top-notch defensive coordinator, has had top-notch defenses in 4 stops in the NFL to this point. He is a coordinator who thrives on defensive line play. And that's why when it was Dalvin Tomlinson, when it was Ogmaniah Okoronkwo, why it was having Alex Wright here, Isaiah Thomas here, drafting Isaiah McGuire, and even after all that, still poking the fire and going out and landing a player like Zadarius Smith. There are still a couple of defensive tackles available. Shelby Harris certainly would be a nice get. Matt Ioannidis would certainly be a nice get. And I think the Browns have every intention to be in on either of those players when either of those players and their camps are ready, that they are truly thinking about finally putting pen to paper and finding what their 2023 team destination will be. I don't think the Browns are going to be left out on the cold on either of those negotiations. But this is a man who has had extremely solid defensive lines. Albert Hainsworth, Ndamukong Suh, Marcel Darius. We all know about the players he had at his disposal at the time with the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, he's got a Hall of Fame Defensive Player of the Year candidate year in, year out in Myles Garrett. Gets a veteran who certainly knows the track record of Jim Schwartz and Zadarius Smith. Okoronkwo in an opportunity where, similar to what he was with the Rams, able to kind of be the guy that kind of goes under the radar. And, well, Myles at the left, we got to worry about that. Or Myles in the interior, we got to worry about that. All right, so now we got to focus on Smith. And a guy like Okoronkwo can just eat up most likely one-on-one battles with right tackles. His ability to get around the edge and his ability to dupe tackles into overextending and finding a way to cut up inside. He's been a solid player. Career high of 7 sacks last year. That may be the number, maybe 1, 2 higher, but I think you're going to have to focus so much attention on Myles Garrett, on Zadarius Smith, and of course Dalvin Tomlinson, that when you get to the 4th and 5th pass rusher, which we keep reiterating, Jim Schwartz has mentioned he would like to be able to rush 5. You rush 5 unless you can't, because you're getting, basically gashed and you have to drop another player in coverage. You can cover with 6. You can rush 5, which is obviously where Jim Schwartz is coming from and where his success, he thinks, can come from this team. You have a really nice matchup of personnel versus coordinator. Yes, one more. Please, Andrew Berry. One more on the interior. But, you still could possibly have Maurice Hurst find that 4-leaf clover. He has never gotten to this point in his NFL career where maybe it's health for a 14, 15, 16, maybe even 17 game stretch. And we could truly see what this player is after all the hype coming out of Michigan so many years ago. Now, also, Jordan Elliott, the commitment, and you're reworking the contract to make sure he's a part of this team in his final year, 4th year of his rookie deal. Maybe there is something there. Look, we've all heard this before with Jordan Elliott. We've heard of promising off seasons, committed in the facility all the time, but we haven't always seen it pan out. Maybe, who knows, with this defense coordinator who excels with defensive line play, maybe this time will be different with Jordan Elliott. I'm not going to gamble on that. If he does come around as part of this defensive tackle room, that is fantastic. But in my opinion, that's still the reason the Browns need to be hopefully scouring the market to add one more guy. And you put in this secondary play, and which should pair so well with this defensive line room and this pass rushing sets and scheme that Jim Schwartz wants to run. It should be top shelf. There's no question about it. And it's another reason why I think this is a team that is truly going to contend in 2023. As far as Bubba Ventrone, it's a great get. I'm not sure just yet how the NFL is going to work out with these new kickoff rules, which may limit what a special teams coordinator can do. But a lot of it is going to come down to Cade York. It's going to come down to obviously covering punts, which the Browns have made investments in that avenue. They have players on the roster who have excelled in special teams before. So Bubba Ventrone, it looks like a really, really good hire. We'll see the way it plays out here as far as kickoffs and where the opponent is getting the ball. But again, every special teams coordinator, sometimes you usually only look as good as your punt coverage unit and the success of your kicker. So we'll see the way that all works out. But you've added a top-notch defensive coordinator. You've added a budding star special teams coordinator who many people feel he is bound for a different avenue of coaching in the NFL because he is just that good. He's a motivator, and players respect him for the amount of times he put in the league, being a guy who was a career special teamer. So we got to a bunch here today. Obviously, for in my opinion, the 3 top reasons why I think the Cleveland Browns will contend in the 2023 season: Deshaun Watson, and a lot of really, really good weapons. And we're to the point now where people aren't even mentioning Nick Chubb and the offensive line. A defense built for a winning franchise. Pass rushers everywhere and solid coverage unit from your cornerbacks and your safeties. Major upgrade at the defensive coordinator, and a solid upgrade at the special teams coordinator. And we'll see the way all these things play out. I am Jeff Lloyd. I've been the host of Locked On Browns. This will be my 7th season doing Cleveland Browns coverage. I appreciate you all for being along for the ride. To the everydayers, you guys are the best. You're the fabric of basically what the entire premise of the Locked On Sports podcast is built on. So the Locked On Browns podcast, you everydayers, you guys are the best. Be more like the everydayers. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. So when the content drops, you guys are all there to consume it audio-wise. Locked On Browns, always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.